Today we are going to take you through the Reign of Terror. So when we last left France, the National Convention abolished the monarchy, trying to make France a republic. The king is basically another citizen. Notice all male, adult male have the right to vote, women not so much. Again, declared France a republic, reduced Louis to the route of a prisoner, found him guilty of treason, and sentenced to death by the guillotine. All right, we already talked about that. In 1792, mobs have the power. I think that's why so much they talk about those October days, because that's a good example of that. Faced with the threat of Parisian radicals, troublemakers in France, gives up the idea of limited monarchy. And again, that new legislature votes to execute the king. All right, so we're starting to move from a bourgeoisie phase to a very liberal phase of the revolution. On October 13, 1793, Marie Antoinette loses her head and says anybody who messes with the new leader, Robespierre, will be similarly dealt with. But here's the problem. While France is going through the revolution, there are some people who want to spread the revolution from France to the rest of Europe. And Austria, Prussia, their neighbors are afraid. No, 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 we don't want this revolution germ to spread to the rest of Europe. So they try to get Louis XVI back into power. And to respond to that, the Legislative Assembly declares war. All right, so France declares war. Who are they declaring war with? Prussia and Austria. Notice here's France, there's Prussia, there's Austria. All right? So like we just said, they want Louis back, so they declare war. Prussian forces soon threaten and attack Paris. All right? They think the king and the queen are helping, especially Austria, because the queen has a relation there. So this is why you go from a very short time of a limited monarchy. The mob puts pressure and says, no, we've got to be a republic. And Louis is no longer the king. The radical group called the Jacobins, and they take over. So that's when we move from the bourgeoisie phase to the liberal phase. All right? And what we're seeing here is a very violent transition. Okay? And here we go, January 21st, 1793. Louis is guillotined. You notice, ow, ow. All right? Early on, France doesn't do well in the war. Prussia demands that if Louis isn't returned to power, the Prussians will destroy. So that's why Louis gets his head cut off. It's a tactic of the war. France are soon to call it in the countryside, and their exit from the city further alarms the Third Estate. There's a fear that they're not using the army to fight Prussia and Austria, that they're trying to help the king and the queen. And this is why we see that movement to a republic. So the war affects the politics, and the politics affect the war. The Jacobins take control. I think all of this we've done already. All right, so the Jacobins take control. They're this radical political club. They're way on the left. They want a ton of change. And really what they've decided is anybody who doesn't agree with them, they are going to kill. All right? And they have very few allies. So they're going to have to kill a lot of people because they're going to kill their enemies. Or they use the guillotine. Interestingly enough, it was thought to be more humane. At this point, the war is going fairly well for France's 800,000 man and woman army. But then Britain, Holland, and Spain joined forces against France because they don't want this revolution germ to spread. Two famous Jacobins. I've seen this painting 100 times. Marat was a writer who said anybody who was loyal to the king should be killed. He had a skin disease, so he would take these baths and he'd meet people in the baths. Somebody who didn't like him snuck in and killed him. And the killer said, I killed one man to save 100,000. The other famous Jacobin, who isn't Robespierre, is Danton, who's a lawyer who's loyal to the poor. They're kind of the faces of the Jacobins. Who's Robespierre? Robespierre is the leader of the Jacobins. He rules France for a year. He becomes basically the leader of the Committee for Public Safety. He basically makes himself a dictator over the Republic. And thousands die. Like we said before, people are getting killed so fast at the guillotine who doesn't even have time to be sharpened. 85% of those who died were of the middle or lower class. All right? So the French army's doing well, but then Britain, Spain, and Holland join forces against France. And the National Convention says, oh, we need more armies. This time period is known as the Reign of Terror, partly because of the war, partly because of the politics. Robespierre is killing everybody. So this is interesting. The leadership, the members of the National Convention are worried that Robespierre is going to start killing them. They turn against him, they arrest him, they execute him, say you've gone too far. And what happens is this reign of terror, while the revolution moved, I guess it should go this way, left. Well, it went so far left that people are like, whoa, Robespierre went too far. And the revolution is going to switch again from the radicals. He's executed on July 28th. Here you see the execution. And what happens is, so it started out bourgeoisie, went way to the left with liberals, and the Reign of Terror made it move back to the middle. Moderate leaders write a new constitution, the third constitution in 2 years. They create a two-house legislature, and they put a 5-man directory to restore order. This would be like if we had a 5-person committee to be president, and they name a man named Napoleon Bonaparte to be president. Boom. Again, third government since 1789. That's it.